The Senate will come to order. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance by Senator Ulibarri will lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, guests, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Majors, would you please take the roll?
Aguilar, Balmer, Baumgardner,
Excused?
Brophy, Cadman, Crowder, Grantham, Guzman, Harvey, Heath, Herpin, Hill, Hodge, John,
Excused?
Johnston, Jones, Kafalis, Kerr, King, Lambert, Lundberg, Marble, Newell, Nicholson, Renfro, Rivera, Roberts, Scheffel, Schwartz,
Excused?
Stedman, Toctrop, Todd, Ulibarri, Zenzinger. Madam President.
Here. With 32 present, 0 absent, 3 excused, the Senate has a quorum. Motion to adopt the journal, Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the reading of the Journal of February 26 be dispensed with, and the Journal be approved and is corrected by the Secretary. Thank you.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Committee reports.
February 26, 2014, Committee on Judiciary. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following House Bill 1122 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole a favorable recommendation. February 26, 2014, Committee on Judiciary. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 133 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of Finance with favorable recommendation. February 26, 2014, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 32 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. February 26, 2014, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following House Bill 1051 be amended as follows and also amended before the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, where the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 26, 2014, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 143 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. February 26, 2014, Committee on Health and Human Services. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 78 be postponed indefinitely. February 26, 2014, Committee on Education. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following House Bill 1190 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 26, 2014, Committee on Education. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 149 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Senate Services.
February 27, 2014, correctly engrossed Senate Bill 93, correctly re-engrossed Senate Bills 49, 114, 129, 142, correctly re-revised House Bills 1005, 1008, 1050, 1083, and 1099.
Message from the reviser.
February 26, 2014, we herewith transmit without comment House Bills 1188 and 1254 without comment as amended, House Bills 1034, 1082, 1191, and 1210.
Introduction of resolutions. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 17?
Senate Joint Resolution 17 by Senator Schwartz and Representative Hamner concerning national fish hatcheries in Colorado.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move we lay over SJR 17 until March 7th.
For the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. SJR 17 will lay over till March 7th. Introduction of bills.
Senate Bill 150 by Senators Todd and Zenzinger and Representative Hamner concerning the Colorado School Counselor Corps Grant Program.
Education. Third reading of bills. Okay. The Senate will take a senatorial 5. Senate will come back to order. Committee reports.
February 26, 2014, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following House Bill 1194 be referred favorably to the Committee on Legislative Counsel. February 26, 2014, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following House Bill 1166 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. February 26, 2014, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following House Bill 1174 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar.
Please add Senators Schwartz and Senator John to the present roll call. Third reading of bills. Members, please take your seats and off with the electronics. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 93?
Senate Bill 93 by Senator John and Representative May concerning equivalent authority for pipeline companies to acquire right-of-way.
Senator John.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 93 on third reading, final passage, and ask for a yes vote.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Madam President. We had a rather thorough discussion with this on seconds, and I don't think everything needs to be repeated, but something was brought to my attention that I believe was mentioned at the mic, but I would reiterate that, and that is, we refer back to the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution as authorizing the use of eminent domain for the taking of private property. But a careful reading of that states, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. And that's where the line is drawn constitutionally, is public use. This is not public use. This may be public good. This may be public benefit. Even as I should hope most private businesses are in the state of Colorado, a benefit to all in some way or another, but it's not public use. Public use is when private property is taken so that a road, a public road, might be put in place or expanded. But this bill that supposedly just makes a little technical adjustment to move us back to where we were, or thought we were, in Colorado laws, in fact does put before us the significant question, shall private businesses be allowed to take property as if they were the government, as if it was public use when it isn't? And it is for those reasons and the many others that were made during seconds that I would recommend that you vote no. I am voting no.
Senator John.
And I believe that the practices and the law as it was passed in 1907 made it very, very clear, and it has been on the books now and used as such for 139 years. It's a very long time. And I think that it very well and quite specifically spells it out in our state constitution as well as the statute. So with that, I would ask for a yes vote.
Question for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 93. Are there any no votes? Senator Lundberg, Senator Rivera, Senator Lambert, Senator Herpin, Senator Marble, Senator Kafalis, Senator Jones, Senator Brophy, Senator Aguilar, Senator Hill. With 24 ayes, 10 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 93 is adopted. Co-sponsors. General orders. Co-sponsor, please add Senator Toctrop. And Senator Balmer. General orders, second reading of bills. Senator Kerr. You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The Senate will resolve itself into a committee of the whole for purpose of considering general order, second reading of bills calendar. Senator Kerr might take the chair, but not the gavel.
Cindy, and we have an extra gavel just in case. The committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, please read the title to, where are we going? House Bill 1022.
House Bill 1022 by Representative Landgraf, Senator Newell, concerning alignment of the duration of the child care authorization notice with the child care assistance eligibility period for children participating in the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1022. Actually, there are no committee reports, so I just move House Bill 1022.
Senator Newell.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this one passed unanimously out of the House and out of HHS with one excused. And so it is a cleanup bill from 2010 of House Bill 1035 that Senator Stedman did, and is basically just aligning an eligibility period with an authorization period with the Child Care Assistance Program. And I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 1022? Seeing 1022. Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1022. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1022 is passed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 29?
Senate Bill 29 by Senator Newell and Representative Fisher concerning the establishment of a paint stewardship program for the environmentally sound disposal of post-consumer architectural paint.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 29 and the Appropriations Committee report and the Agriculture Committee report.
To the Appropriations Committee, to the Ag Committee report, please.
The Ag? Okay. So in that one, members, we did a minor adjustment with definitions of of curbside service, and that was at the request of Waste Management, and it was unanimously adopted, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Agricultural Committee report? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of the Agricultural Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Agriculture Committee report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In appropriations, we appropriated dollars for the solid waste program and associated legal services, and the Department of Public Health and Environment, and the Department of Law. And I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this is the paint stewardship program. And across the country, stewardship programs are becoming quite effective. 32 states, in fact, have passed 74 stewardship laws on products like batteries, electronics, carpet, fluorescent light lamps, mercury thermostats, yielding tremendous job creation, environmental protection, and tax savings nationwide. So this program is an industry-led solution that we worked on throughout the summer and fall with the recyclers, with the providers, the waste haulers, with the retail council, and the consumers, and we all came together and came up with this decided product that is the paint stewardship program. And it will work where, how many of you, in fact, probably every one of you in this room, has at least one can of paint sitting in your basement or your garage and you don't know what to do with it, or you're hanging around waiting to see if you're going to use it for the next time you paint your bathroom? Well, otherwise, you could hang on to that, or you could take advantage of this program when it comes in, which would be a paint recycling program. You would be able to go to your local Lowe's or Home Depot or Ace Hardware, for instance, and you would be able to drop off. They would have collection sites at these places in the populated areas, and then in the rural areas, they would have collection events, paint collection events, and that would mean that they would have like 1 to 2 events a year in the rural areas where you would be able to drop off your paint cans. And there are also businesses. In fact, there is one in my own district in the city of Inglewood called Green Sheen, and it is a company that has created a paint recycling process where they take these old cans of paint and they turn it into brand new paint, and there's a process for that. So they have actually doubled in size, but it is more expensive for the consumer. So what we are doing through this program is making it less expensive for the consumer, and then we are also having a safe way to be able to dispose of the paint. It reduces the burden on local government and taxes, so both CCI and CML are in support of the bill. They collaborate with their local household hazardous programs, and it creates green sector jobs also in paint recycling and reprocessing. And I think that's it for right now, Mr. Chair. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I did not hear this in committee, so I have some questions. And I would first observe that the argument given for the justification for this is recycling of lamp lights that contain mercury and batteries that contain sulfuric acid and lead. My first question, Mr. Chairman, that I would hope the sponsor answers is, what is the toxic material that we are trying to protect the public from contained within a standard can of acrylic latex paint?
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With this program, we are guessing that it will be about 80% of the collection will be latex paint, but some of it can be lead paint as well. And so what we are trying to do is to make sure that those cans as well, the aluminum cans that are sitting there, also get disposed properly. So it's both the can and the paint, rather than getting into, in fact, I know probably all of us have seen maybe some people on our own streets who will take an old can of paint and they will dump it down the sewer drain, which goes into our water.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe I can add a little detail to this. My father was a painting contractor for about 50 years. I grew up in it. I can tell you a whole lot about paint. I can tell you that I think it was 1968 that the federal government actually the use of lead for a pigment in paint as the base pigment was something that was done 50, 60 years ago. It was in the 1950s that started to go out of vogue. And I believe it was 1968, or right about there, that the federal government actually put some rather strict limits, not only limiting the use of lead as a pigment, which it was phased out over a period of time, so by the time you hit 1980, it didn't exist, either as a pigment or as a drying agent, which are the two uses that lead was used for. So to find some paint that has lead in it today would be a rare find indeed. You won't find lead in paint at Home Depot, period. You also won't find aluminum containers. They build them out of plastic, and then they'll have usually a lid that is metallic, but that's a steel lid with maybe a paint or possibly some sort of a chrome finish put on there to resist corrosion. But there's nothing dangerous about any of those components. So we're not talking about a toxic material. Yeah, I don't recommend you drink paint. And it is true that some paints are actually the solvent, not for your latex, well, most latexes, but there are paints that have a petroleum-based solvent that's in them. But that seriously doesn't justify the use of this program. Now, the other statement that was made that I really have a strong question on is this is supposed to cost the consumer less. Well, this is a price that's put on every paint that's sold. It's a fee. If I understand this, it's a fee, it's assessed at the wholesale level. So I do have another question, and that is, what will this cost the consumer? I've scanned the fiscal note, and I didn't find it. You know, we can see local government impact and state expenditure impact, but I'd like to see what the consumer impact is. In other words, when I go down and buy a can of paint for 20, 30 bucks a gallon, will it now be $22 a gallon? Will it be $20.50 a gallon? Will it be $25 a gallon? When we put in place a requirement for a recycling program for batteries, it was, I believe, if memory serves me, a minimum of $5 per battery. Is this $5 per gallon of paint? I really do want to know that question, because it's not going to cost the consumer less, it's going to cost the consumer more, not only, you know, for the processing of the program and the paint, but for just the administrative load that we put in place here. So what's it going to cost the consumer? That's a serious question that needs to be answered. And then finally, let me talk about the processing of used paint. There are two ways you can process, well, there are three ways. One is you can throw it away. And proper disposal of paint is to either let it dry or mix in a filling agent so that it doesn't, you know, drip away if you put it in a trash truck. You don't want the paint to all drip to the bottom and then drop out on the street while they're driving to the local landfill. But, so that's one way. You can just throw it away. Number two is you can, if it has some volatile solvents in it, you can actually recover those, and those are of value. Number three is you can repackage it. You're not going to turn brown paint into white paint, but you can certainly turn white paint into brown paint to a degree, you know, depending on a whole lot of factors there. But it's not that complicated to recycle paint. It's called take it from the old bucket and put it in the new bucket, and hopefully strain it and remix it and ensure that its components don't show evidence of having frozen, because that'll kill your binding acrylics really fast. This is not rocket science. This is about as exciting as watching the stuff dry on the wall. But it's an important issue because it's in a bill before us, and it's going to cost the consumer that much more. I still renew my question, what's it going to cost? And obviously, I'm going to say it's too much. It's not necessary. It's a government program that its time has not come.
Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in my prayer this morning, I talked about grace, and so I do want to extend grace to my beloved colleague from Littleton. But don't you hate it when somebody says but and then they get ready to say something that's just the opposite of what they said they were going to say? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a mandate in every respect. Read the bill. The word must is repeated over and over and over. From the fiscal note, I read, once a program has been approved, DPHE will post information about approved paint stewardship programs on its website and will monitor programs for compliance and proper implementation. The executive director will investigate any complaints and potential violations. So within DPHE, we are going to have the paint police going all over the place, checking to see if we are all staying within the law of this new mandate. Now, the proponents of this bill have said this is going to be a job creator. CML supports it because it's a job creator. Waste Management supports it because it's a job creator. CCI supports it because it's a job creator. But what I want to ask you is, what kind of jobs are we creating? Are we creating organic jobs that come as a result of free market policies? No, we are creating jobs that are being mandated by the government. Yes, I do expect that Sherwin-Williams will have to develop a compliance expert. I do expect that Home Depot and Lowe's will have to develop compliance experts. And they'll have to keep track of this. And I can imagine that this is a nationwide trend, and we'll see this passed in a bunch of states. And so there in headquarters of Home Depot in Georgia, they'll be working on complying with this. Now, that person that works in compliance, they're not adding to the value of the stock price of Home Depot. They're not creating value. They are a constant drain on the cost of what it costs Home Depot to stay open. Now, where does Home Depot make up for that cost? With how much they're going to charge. And you say, well, that's not a problem. They'll have that fee right on the bill. You're doggone right they're going to have that fee right on the bill. Home Depot is going to put right on your bill the paint stewardship fee, because Home Depot does not want to be blamed for this law. Home Depot wants to make it crystal clear that your state government mandated that you've got to pay this fee to get this paint put through the stewardship program. Lowe's on their bill is going to have a paint stewardship fee. So all of our constituents all across Colorado are going to see on their bill a paint stewardship fee. And I sure hope that that friendly person that helps you at Lowe's explains to you that this is coming to you through your state legislature. If you don't like that paint stewardship fee, please get on the phone and call your state legislator and say, shame on you for increasing the cost of me painting my house. Now, many of you have had your tires replaced. Raise your hand if you've had your tires replaced. Okay? You've had your tires replaced. And is there a waste tire recycling fee? Yes, there is. And do they just build that into the cost of replacing your tires? No. No matter where you go to get your tires replaced, they put a separate line on your bill that says what the fees are, because they are embarrassed about how high they are. The tire companies are embarrassed that you have to be charged that much money. And so they say, look, this is not our fault. That doggone state government mandated that we charge you this fee, and you've got to pay it, we've got to collect it, and we've got to be part of this mandated program. Now, I'm sure that there are a lot of big government people that just think that's great, but I'm not one of them. And I'm not one that's going to think that if we have a paint stewardship fee, that that's going to be a good thing either, because all of these fees have to be paid by normal families who are struggling right now to make ends meet. And we're just going to put another fee right on top of them. So let me finish with an illustration. Way back in the 1890s, there was a brilliant man called Thomas Edison. And he was inventing things. And he said, you know, some of these inventions that use electricity are pretty ingenious. I think I'm going to put a bunch of inventors and smart people in a lab in Menlo Park, New Jersey, and I'm going to ask them to invent consumer electronic products. Even the name was new. consumer electronic products. And Thomas Edison said, I want you to use your imagination to create the most ingenious products that people in America and around the world will buy to make their lives more convenient. Did he go to the United States government or to the New Jersey government and say, I want you to give me a bunch of government grants to pay for my R&D? No. In fact, they invented a lot of consumer electronic products that never made it. They tried it and nobody bought them. But they did make a few consumer electronic products that were incredibly successful. And around that, they built a company called General Electric. My dad worked for General Electric for 39 years. And the entire time he worked there, they were not getting government money, apart from their defense part of their industry, to build mandated markets for their products. Unfortunately, after my dad's retirement, General Electric has become one of the biggest benefactors of mandated free market. Ladies and gentlemen, when you mandate something, it is not free market. When you mandate something, you are not creating jobs. You are sucking the life out of normal Coloradans to pay for these newly created government jobs. And I do appreciate your indulgence and your grace with my passion on this issue, but I am so concerned that this legislature absolutely sees no end to creating mandates on Coloradans. Our state used to be free. Our state is now nothing but a series of government mandates from this legislature that apparently see no end. And I hope that you will stand up today and say, it's enough with the mandates. Enough with the mandates. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Balmer. Senator King.
Well said. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I love local control. I love the ability for communities to look at problems within their communities and decide how they can cost-effectively deal with those problems. I love the idea of talented people within each given community being able to say, how can we make our community better, safer, more functional, more responsive to our citizens? My 3 county commissioners in Mesa County are unanimously opposed to this legislation. Their opposition to the legislation is not guided on behalf of being against recycling, which is a valued and promoted system in Mesa County and through Mesa County Solid Waste Collection Program. But the problem that the county commissioners have is with the 75 cents per gallon added to the cost of new latex paint purchased in Colorado. Not local control, a state mandate. And they said emphatically in a letter, a one-size-fits-all latex recycling reimbursement plan will not work. In Mesa County, the collection of waste chemicals and paints from residents is a free service, and is completely funded through landfill tipping fees for our county. Those landfill tipping fees have not been raised in 5 years. So you have consistency across the board for those residents of Mesa County. Bring your paint. We have a place for you to put it. We will recycle it. And it is free. And they also have people working at the landfill asking you when you pull up, do you have any paint that you are offloading at the landfill? If you say yes, then they direct you back to the paint recycling area. Again, it's free. Mesa County believes it is important to keep landfill tipping fees consistent while still maintaining cost-effective and innovative waste collection and management programs which benefit the residents and support private sector growth. The current waste system in Mesa County is working effectively without the addition of new state mandates in reference to waste latex recycling regulations and fees that don't necessarily mesh with the award-winning management model that Mesa County has developed over the past 15 years. Local control is where you find innovation and problems being solved. One size fits all, good for everybody, doesn't fit anyone right, is how we do it at the state level. When we do the broad brush paint of state mandates. This will add cost to Mesa County residents. This will add cost to citizens of Colorado. This is not a value for their tax dollars, and it is a mandate that is rebuffed by a large portion of our state. And I would ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator King. Senator Ulibarri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of Senate Bill 29 and want to talk about the actual impact that I would see in my home community. So folks may know that Adams County is known for a few things, but especially in southwestern Adams County, Commerce City, we're known for waste processing. My home community of Commerce City is situated between a few landfills, so it's important to me to understand how we actually deal with this issue, both from a business perspective and from a community health perspective. When paint is thrown in the trash, whether it's in a dumpster or it's dropped off at a dump, ends up in my backyard, especially here in the metro area. So this is an issue that we have to deal with. So how should we proceed? What should we do? Because it's the landfills in my community that service most of the rest of the metro area. So when we talk about local control and a one-size-fits-all approach, one city can take action and the rest of the whole, the rest of the region may not take that action, which means that we're dealing with a broader community issue, which is why it rises to the level of statewide concern. So what do we know? We know that this already happens. It ends up in our landfills, ends up in our communities, it ends up in my backyard. So how should we deal with it? The other thing that Adams County is known for is our ingenuity, our desire to bring in new jobs, specifically advanced manufacturing jobs, and what we could see instead of just having toxic waste end up in our landfills, paint, gallons and gallons of paint. What we can do instead is ask folks to pay a little bit of money, 75 cents. That's half the cost of anything that we sell in our vending machine downstairs, right? Less than a Snickers, less than a bag of Lay's potato chips, 75 cents per gallon of paint that you buy. Pretty simple. And by that modest investment, we can actually see job growth and the development of a new recycling industry. And guess what? I know Adams County would be beating down the doors to get those jobs in our community because we already know one thing, we're good at waste processing. We know the other thing is that we love manufacturing jobs. We're ready to do this. And we can do it in a way that both supports our environment and our community. This makes a lot of sense. So I want to thank the bill sponsors for bringing this. I think it makes perfect sense for the health of our communities and for the economic vitality of our state.
Senator Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. there's an old saying that if you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. Meaning if you figure out a better way of doing things, you'll be successful. I don't believe this bill is a better invention. And the senator from Commerce City just mentioned about all we're asking in this bill is we're asking the consumer to pay 75 cents or what, a modest fee in order to fund this. I'm sorry, but this bill doesn't ask anything. This bill says you will pay that fee. So we can clarify that first and foremost. But going back to this mousetrap, on the capitalist and the side that our senator from Broomfield mentioned, is once again the voluntary side of people and their nature and why it is so important to allow people to make choices. This is simply another example of the low flush toilet. We're not giving the consumer out there the choice. We're simply saying, this is what you got to do. This is what you have to do. And to commend the folks that are in support of the bill, they're making a lot of points as to why this is such a good bill, why this is such a good practice, why this is so good for the environment, why this is so reasonable in terms of just keeping everything safe and clean. And that's what advertising is all about. That's how you sell that better mousetrap. You let people know how good it is. You let them know why it works for you, so that people will be happy to go down and buy that and make you successful. And that's what this program should be. Folks on the other side of the aisle should be actually, if anything, paying for or asking for something to educate the people and really convince them why it is so important to do this. Conserve paint or recycle it. And this, I guess maybe this is also the crux of the argument. Do you trust the American public? Do you trust the American consumer? Do you trust the American individual to make the right decision when you provide them with accurate information? I trust them. I have to trust them. But when government mandates a fee and tells people that you have to do this, that government is not trusting their citizens and their consumers and the public. That's what this really boils down to, a matter of trust. A trust in our consumers, a trust in the public, and the public that, once again, I'll make this point, that elects us, that chooses us to represent them. We trust them for that, don't we? Well, then why can't we trust them to make a decision on the proper way to dispose of paint instead of forcing them and making them pay a fee? Why? I don't understand that. So going back to my original statement about the mousetrap, if you build a better mousetrap, the world will be the path to your door. But when the government builds a mousetrap, the only thing that gets caught in that trap is the public. And I ask for a no vote.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I tried to dig a little deeper to find out just what this will cost. I haven't heard a word from the sponsor yet, but we have heard this 75-cent number bounced around as a possible level, but in fact, if I'm reading the fiscal note correctly, that's a guesstimate. And so I'd say by government standards, 75 cents to $1 is probably what will be charged the retailer for the privilege of selling a gallon of paint to the consumer. Now, if you've ever been in retail sales, you know that you don't just pass costs along because you have overhead and it all kind of adds up. And so the probability that it'll be just that amount passed on as the final price is debatable. It'll be at least that amount. It could easily be twice that amount. So my question earlier of, well, if you're buying a gallon of paint for $30 or $20, are you going to be paying 22, 33? What, 32? This is not insignificant. And now, if you look at your fiscal note, it looks like it's about a $90,000 project. That's what it says here. It says 1 FTE for the 2015-2016 year and $90,000. But that's only for the Department of Public Health and Environment to administer the program. That's not to run these paint recycling programs, because that's supposed to be, from the way it looks, kind of offloaded on some business. This is the green jobs that are being created. I'd say they're green, red, purple. Paint comes in all colors, But the actual cost is way beyond $90,000. That's just what the Department of Public Health and Environment is going to be seeing at first. If we have a state of 5 million people, I kind of look at my family. Right now we've got 3 people living in my household. And what's our consumption of paint? Probably 10 gallons a year. If you kind of average this out, I remember painting my house a couple of years ago, and I think it took about 20 gallons. I painted my garage this last summer, mixed up about 4.5 gallons. What are we going to? How much paint is sold in a year's time in Colorado? 10 million gallons, 20 million gallons. Because I'm only talking about my residents. I'm not talking about all of the commercial facilities that occurs as well. And I can easily see that it's in the tens of millions of gallons of paint a year. It's a big business. And this is a very, very big cost to the people of Colorado. Now, the argument is that this is a toxic waste. Should we have a stewardship program for every possible piece of trash that's created? What about carpet? You ever tried to get rid of carpet? Man, that's a mess. We ought to have a government program to get rid of carpet. A carpet recycling program. I better not give you too many ideas here. What else could we be? Shoes. Shoes. Do we have a shoe recycling program? And hats? Well, hats aren't used quite as much, so maybe we can just fold that in with shoes. Shoes and hats. Or pencils, or... Do you see the absurdity of this? Absurdity. However, I do want to thank the proponents of the bill for bringing this forward for another reason, because I'm constantly trying to describe to people what actually happens down here in the legislature. And rarely am I given a gift of such magnitude as this bill. This bill captures in such a succinct fashion all that's wrong with our programs down here. And it does it in such an absurd fashion, too. It's paint. It's paint that's already gone through all of the regulations on keeping it as non-toxic as possible. It's just in a semi-liquid form. And then, not always. You know, that brings to mind, though, maybe we should have a recycling program for dried paint. I mean, all the components are there except that the volatile ones that have flashed off. So if there's a pressing need to get rid of wet paint, let's get rid of dry paint in the same way. We might need to put the price a little bit higher because, of course, to remove dried paint is kind of difficult. But it makes about as much sense. Do you really want to move this bill forward? I don't.
Is there further discussion? Senator Balmer?
Not yet.
Senator King?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was putting a pencil to how many gallons of latex paint were collected at the Mesa County landfill in 2013. That was 9,000 gallons. At 75 cents a gallon, that would be $6,750 taken out of my constituents' pockets for nothing. Vote no.
Do you turn it in? Senator Balmer, but turn the amendment in first.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry. You're right, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Thank you.
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you please read Amendment L002?
Amendment L002 to Senate Bill
Senator
29.
Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move L002 to Senate Bill 29.
To the amendment, Senator Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, we have heard from this well that this is going to cost 75 cents per gallon. Now, most of us have been here at the Capitol for quite a while, and we have seen that when fees are passed, and I bet you I've heard 10 times in my times at the Capitol, maybe it's 20 times, where someone has promised me from the well of the House or from the well of the Senate that the fee is going to be X amount. But in reality, when you go back and look 2 or 3 years after the fact, the fee is 4 or 5 times higher than that. Why is that? Because it was raised by the department. And why did the department have the power to do that? Because we didn't constrain the department in the bill. And we don't constrain the department in this bill. The department's going to be able to charge whatever they want to charge. And they're going to be able to raise the fee as many times as they want. So all this amendment says is that any fee shall never exceed 75 cents per gallon of paint. Now, why did I use the word never? Because I don't think no is strong enough. I didn't think putting the word not was strong enough because I figured that some creative person that's administering this program would figure out a way, somehow or another, to raise the fee even if we said that they shall not raise the fee. So I used the word never, which I think has clear meaning. I hope it does. And so if in fact the proponents of this bill firmly believe in their hearts that the fee should not be more than 75 cents per gallon, which, by the way, you know, when you paint your house, you're probably going to get several gallons of paint, right? You can't paint your house with 1 gallon of paint. So on your bill, it's going to already be $3 or $4 fee, $5 fee probably. So what this amendment says is it's not going to be more than 75 cents, ever. So I hope that you will support the amendment. And Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Balmer. Is there any further discussion on L002? Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is exactly one of the biggest portions of this bill that are so disturbing is when you have unwritten policies and you hand them down to a regulatory agency to interpret. It lays it open for open season on the consumer. And you have very large inconsistencies, and this amendment would greatly clear that up and make it very, very consistent that no more than 75 cents per gallon of paint can be charged on this fee. If this were just handed over as it was, the regulatory agency could interpret it perhaps for different counties a different fee. They would see it appropriate. Who's to stop them? This limits that. And we have to stop handing down unwritten policies to regulatory agencies, because when I hear from the business people in our counties, this is what hurts them the most. It really has to be something consistent that they know what they're going to be charged so that everything fits in their budget. And if something happens, they have a consistent law to go to. Unwritten policies are not good practice. And so I would really urge you to support Amendment L002. I think it is appropriate, it is needed, and it helps define to the regulatory agency what exactly they can and can't do, and so it becomes more clear and consistent to the consumer.
Senator Lumber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question, and I don't know who would be the best to answer this, be it the sponsor of the amendment or the sponsor of the bill, but I do support the amendment as well. It will limit the damage to some degree, but I would like to know if the 75 cent per gallon fee is two things. One, is it proratable so that if you have a 12-ounce spray can of paint, does that then prorate down to whatever increment of a gallon that is? And then secondly, if on page 2 of the fiscal note, it says under fees on businesses, it says, in addition, producers must pay a paint stewardship program plan fee, a revised plan fee, or an annual report fee as necessary to the Department of Public Health and Environment. So my question is, does the paint stewardship program plan fee, the revised plan fee, and the annual report fee all fold into the 75 cent per gallon limit, which would, of course, then only limit this fee to a modest $10 or $20 million a year? Does anybody know?
Senator Stedman. Nope. Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is about architectural paint, so it doesn't cover spray paint. And I asked for a no vote for a couple of reasons on this. In the states that have already done this public-private, it's an industry-led program, they have done 75 cents or less. However, if we put a cap on it and it would turn out to be 76 cents, we would literally have to come back, spend dollars, time, energy with a bill rather than just allowing this nonprofit organization with the industry to work then with the Department of Public Health, and it would be about, as history proves in other states, about 75 cents. But if indeed it were to become 76 cents and 75 cents, we'd have to come back and run a whole bill on something that that wouldn't make sense to do on a 1 cent difference. So I would ask for a no vote.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colleagues, I'll also ask for a no vote. One of the things we've been struggling with in the Joint Budget Committee this year is programs where the fees are capped or specified in statute, and as time goes on, those fees become artificially suppressed by the statutory language, and they're insufficient to support the program, and often the program is not able to seek other funding through our budget process or to have legislation passed to allow more flexibility and for their fees to adjust over time. And so here again, we're locking in a number that may make sense today and may be, in fact, the prevailing practice and fee for similar programs across the country. But at some point, inflation marches on, and there would need to be adjustments to this fee if this program is to continue to provide its services, and it would require legislation and more time spent talking about a relatively small program here in this chamber. And I think we should defeat this amendment and allow our successors who will serve in this body someday in the future to avoid debating the difference between 75 cents and 85 cents or 95 cents or $1. This is something we should entrust the program to set a fee for. And if there's a concern that the fee would be excessive, that the fund balance would grow, well, then this fund would show up on the front page of the newspaper like we saw yesterday with the audit committee all upset at them. We have ways to keep fees in check and make sure they are adequate and appropriate to support the programs that they are intended for. I don't think this amendment is necessary, and I'd urge a no vote.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I thank my distinguished colleague who serves with me on the Joint Budget Committee for bringing up the audit report, because this is something we need to look at. One of the concerns I have is that this department, Public Health and Environment, is the oversight that we're asking to initiate a new cash fund with this bill. And I'd ask the member if what's the track record of that department on these audit reports? From the audit report on cash funds and excess uncommitted reserves, there were 12 departments, 34 total cash funds that reported excess uncommitted reserves. This is an increase over the previous year. And those cash funds contained a total of $25.6 million in excess of uncommitted reserves. Well, a couple numbers pop out at me, and I know the member from Denver is well familiar with the medical marijuana cash fund, which has an uncommitted reserve of $12,542,000. None of those dollars came from me? But there are a couple other cash funds on newborn genetics. That's over by $2 million. The health facilities general licensure fund in excess of $520,000. So, yeah, I'd be glad to have the member respond on how well this department has managed its cash funds.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to beg the committee's indulgence to stray from the topic of the amendment on the floor and respond just to say that, yes, it's true, CDPHE has not had a very good track record of adjusting fees, and the front page of the Post yesterday bears witness to that. But I'll also point to another program in CDPHE where the Joint Budget Committee sponsored legislation to deal with the very fact that fees were specified in statute long ago and have produced inadequate resources to the Water Quality Division, and we introduced Senate Bill 134 to try to address that, and what happened? Boom. I think, Senator Lambert, you even voted against that bill. That we all agreed was something needed to be done because the department, I will stick to the amendment. I'll stick to the amendment, Mr. Chairman. I think putting this cap in just means that at some point in the future, we're going to be spending a whole lot more time wasting debate on nickels and dimes for a program that should be able to set its own fee at the level it needs to support itself, and this, I just vote no.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would like to respond in response. You know, we have a lot of very critical needs. In some cases, excess cash fund reserves, which are not being properly managed. And we do have more serious things to consider as a state. Air quality, water quality, we've been putting a lot of work in that. The question here on this amendment, on this bill, is do we need to add another distraction away from those more important issues for monitoring latex paint that already has a lot of sideboards on it, and do we need to create a new fund, a new mechanism, a new bureau, a new cash fund, a new funding stream, new fee management that's just going to require more and more administration to do something that's already been done in law, or is this just going to be redundant?
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am in full support of this amendment L002. When you contact a paint contractor for your home, you are given an estimate of how many gallons of paint it will take to do the job or to paint your house. We are buying paint to use, yet we are paying a fee to use that paint. And if we don't cap it, I mean, paint is already pretty expensive as it is. But we're adding, when you look to paint the outside of a house, I know it was a few years ago I got an estimate, and that was around 15 5-gallon buckets of paint. When we were done, we had less than a 5-gallon bucket left. I did not buy that paint to store, I bought it to use. The contractor used that. When we take our paint cans in to recycle or to dispose of, we aren't taking full gallons of paint. Usually they're maybe a quarter full, a half full, not full. If they aren't opened, they've been used. Yet we're still paying a fee, and there's touch-up paint that we keep in store for when we have those nicks and wear and tear on the house. But we are paying a fee to recycle paint that we are already using. I find the fee for a consumer of 75 cents per gallon outrageous, because they aren't recycling that paint, they are using that paint. So what, should we call this a use tax? I think that we better take a look at what what's actually happening here when we have a paint contractor come out. You cannot tax somebody for something they use because you say it's a recycle project, or what this bill, what are we doing here? A paint stewardship program for disposal? If I'm painting my house, I'm not disposing of that paint, I'm using that paint. And I do not want to pay a fee to use something when you say I'm going to recycle it. I'm not. I'm using it. That's what I'm already paying a tax for. You start programs like this already. Look at how many people can't fix their homes because they don't have the money. They delay painting a home because they don't have the money, and now you're telling them you got to pay more money to do something you couldn't afford before. I don't want to pay money and call it a paint stewardship or recycle program when actually I bought something to use it, not to recycle it. And I'm against this bill. I'm against, a fee. I think if you're going to pass it, at least put a cap on it, because you're making a tremendous amount of money already on paint that is being bought to be used, not recycled. I can't take the paint off my house and then go take it to a recycle place. I am for this amendment.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I stand in support of this amendment that, and I've told you that before, but I come back to the microphone because I believe there's more information that we need to consider. So those who have said vote no on the amendment have one message very clear, and that is 75 cents a gallon is not enough. Maybe it's not enough in the future, but it's not enough. Therefore, it's inappropriate to limit this to 75 cents. But let's just assume this amendment goes through and it is limited to 75 cents per gallon. What does that mean in terms of the efficacy of the program that's being set up? Because remember, the paint stewardship program is to deal with the surplus paint that's being turned over for processing. It's not dealing with every gallon of paint that's, well, it is in this sense. A fee is charged for every gallon of paint sold. But in fact, it's to process the used paint, the surplus paint. And what does that mean? And the basic question I'm going to ask here is, so how much are we paying for this paint that's being processed? Are we paying $1 a gallon? Are we paying $5 a gallon? Are we paying $10 a gallon? Is it going to cost us $20 a gallon? How about this? Is it going to cost us $30 a gallon to process this paint? Does that seem a bit excessive? Well, my best estimate is that that is too conservative a number. It's going to be well in excess of that. I told you before, my father was a painting contractor. I started painting literally at the age of 5. Was on the job on a consistent basis by the time I was 10. By the time I could drive, I was running my own business. I have applied thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons of paint. I don't know how much, but a phenomenal amount. Not much recently, but a whole lot. And I understand how precious that stuff is, whether it's $3 a gallon, which it was back when I started, or $30 to $40 a gallon, which is what you easily find for some brands at $50 or $60 a gallon. But when you buy that stuff with the intention of using it, even as the previous senator who does represent Broomfield spoke, you didn't use it to put it in a can to throw away. You used it to put it on the wall. And if you bought 100 gallons of paint, by my experience, if I've got a quart left over that I'm just going to throw away, that's an exceptional situation. Looking back over my experience with those thousands and thousands of gallons, I doubt if we intentionally threw away more than 10 gallons of paint total. Now, some may be much more generous with their waste, but let's take my example. Let's say that I painted 10,000 gallons and I threw away 10 gallons. Now, under this bill, if the amendment were to pass, there would be a $750 fee for the purpose of processing those 10 gallons. That translates into $75 a gallon. Now, I'll grant that I'm a little more careful with this stuff than some people are. But if you bought 100 gallons of paint and put it on a fairly big project, would you expect to throw away 5 gallons? Would you expect to throw away 2 gallons? I doubt it. What I mean by throwaway is, okay, I've got this, I've got to get rid of it. No, if you've got an extra 5 on hand, you keep it, because there is the necessity for touch-up, maybe big touch-up, maybe a tree falls on the house and you need to paint, you know, a big wall. So the actual paint that is disposed of as a surplus is a tiny, tiny fraction of the paint for which we're paying a 75-cent fee or more. But if the amendment goes through, it would be just 75 cents. And under those terms, $30 a gallon for each gallon of paint processed is far too conservative. This is a program that will cost the people of Colorado far more, according to the terms and the expectations of the Department of Health. Now, if this were strictly a private concern, not driven by any government mandate whatsoever, my guess is they'd be processing this paint for $5 to $10 a gallon, max. And if it cost less, they would simply figure out a way to dispose of it in an efficient fashion. But under the government program, 75 cents a can for every can of paint that's sold in this state for architectural purposes, which is most all of it, is not enough. If you can't accept this amendment, the policy you're accepting is completely bankrupt.
Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Earlier I said that in Mesa County in 2013, they collected 9,000 gallons out of the bottom of the paint cans and recycled that. And that was $6,750 that under this bill would be taken out of Mesa County taxpayers' pockets for nothing. We include that in the tipping fee. We recycle our paint. $6,750 for the bottom of the paint can, for the little bit that's there. And yet, Mesa County taxpayers, Mesa County consumers are buying many, many, many more gallons than 9,000 in the bottom of the can. This is a huge use tax on the citizens of Colorado. 9,000 gallons in the bottom of the can in 1 year, in one county, $6,750 out of their pockets for nothing. And that is just a drop in the bucket of what our constituents are going to be charged as they buy this paint. And most of it's on their house. Most of it is being used. So this isn't really recycling fee, it's a use fee. It is a use tax. You know, we talk about arguing over nickels and dimes. But to the people I represent, $6,750 is a lot of nickels and dimes. This is a terrible bill. And this, I would encourage you to vote for this amendment to limit the ability of any department to raise a tax on the citizens of Colorado, a use tax. Vote yes, please.
there any further discussion on L002? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of L002. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no? No. L002 is lost. To the bill, Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I heard this bill in Ag Committee and gave it a lot of thought. I also called a number of folks who sell paint. Well, I can't say a number of folks because we don't have that many people who sell paint in my area. But I want to talk about the logistics of the bill, which I find deeply troubling and really unworkable. On page 7 of the bill, it says on line 14, at least 90% of Colorado residents must have a permanent collection site within a 15-mile radius of their home. And as I mentioned in committee, the only thing that we have every 15 miles in a lot of my district is coyotes. So we don't have a place where you could go and have a permanent collection site. I also called my paint stores to say, how do you feel about being the collection site if people wanted to use this? They frankly really resented the idea that we would be using their space, their limited space that they keep their inventory in, that they would be expected to hold this paint as a collection site. I was perplexed because this bill was, there was testimony from the American Coatings Association, so it appeared to be the paint industry supported the bill. And when I asked my paint stores, how do you feel about the American Coatings Association? Do you feel like they're representing you? They don't even really know who American Coatings Association is, and they don't feel like they're being represented. My thought is whether this will be extremely challenging to do in an urban environment, but in a rural environment, it is completely unworkable. So it is very distressing to me that this is being put forth as if the paint industry and the paint stores are behind it, because at least in my district, they are not. And so I cannot support this bill.
Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The plan may, in lieu of providing collection sites for a specific geographical area or population, identify an available curbside service that provides access to residents that is at least convenient, is at least as convenient and equitably accessible as a collection site. If that isn't bureaucratic mumbo jumbo, I have no idea what that means. And on second reading, if the idea here is to explain the bill, I would like somebody to explain how we would do that, who that is, at least as convenient. Who decides that? And equitably accessible. Who decides that? This is a terrible bill.
Senator Marble. Senator Marble. Is there any further discussion? Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's look at page 6, lines 6 through 10. No producer shall sell, offer for sale, or distribute architectural paint in Colorado unless the producer is implementing or participating in a paint stewardship program approved by the executive director. And the executive director may approve an earlier start date as part of his or her approval of a paint stewardship program plan. And it goes on. Okay, question here, and it is quite open. Unless the producer is implementing or participating in a paint stewardship program, what is that? Does that paint stewardship program definition say he or she is collecting the tax per gallon, or is this another fee or a licensing procedure that they will have to go through to have a certificate on their wall saying they are participating in this stewardship program approved by the executive director. And can somebody answer that for me, please?
Be in a senatorial 5. The committee will come back to order. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, please read L003.
Amendment L003, Senate Bill 29 by Senator Newell, amend printed bill page 10.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment 003 on Senate Bill 29. And members, we figured out a way to cap the program so that instead of putting in an artificial amount of 75 cents, then this would actually require that any funds generated by the aggregate amount of fees charged to the consumers be placed back into the program. And then the aggregate amount of fees charged to consumers pursuant to this section shall be in an amount not to exceed the actual cost of the program. So it does virtually the same thing, but we just don't know if it's going to be 75 cents, 73 cents, or 76 cents. We don't know. But this way, they cannot have fees that would be above and beyond the actual cost of the program. And I ask for an aye vote.
Senator King.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, how are we going to know that? How are we going to know the actual cost of the program?
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure this does anything, because that's the deal of what fees are all about, is to pay for the programs. And when we allow the departments to establish the fee structure, and the bill doesn't establish a fee at all, the 75 cents, I believe, is just a guesstimate as to where it would be. Well, this is just restating the obvious, that the fee is to pay for the program, and the price of the fee should be what the program costs. Now, it doesn't put any limitation on it, so it doesn't actually accomplish any economy. It just states the obvious. That's what a fee is when there is no cap put on it. It doesn't do anything. I don't see that it hurts. I don't see that it helps. Hope we finish this up soon.
President Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, it does two things. In some other areas where we have not wanted unlimited fees to be in there, we have precedent in Colorado for tying it to actual costs. So that is relevant in the sense that if you exceed the relevant costs, you need to reduce the fees on the program. 75 cents may be too high. The actual cost could be 50 cents. I don't know. And so 75 cents at this point is rather arbitrary. In other places, what we do is this is meant to be adjusting so you don't amass more than what's there. And as you know, in other programs, should that happen, if it's tied to actual costs, there's either a refund or a lowering. The other thing it does is you'll recall that there's a section of the bill that actually contemplated how surplus funds in the bill would be used. This is significant because in this amendment, we're taking away the idea that there's any surplus funds, and that is also changed in here too because we're tying it to actual costs. So the original bill said surplus funds could be put back in the program or could be refunded. We've removed that. So the idea of surplus funds is now out of the bill in two ways. And when you put math in statutes, it's always wrong. But if you tie it to actual costs, it's an actual accounting. It may not be the solution for everyone, but it does do those two things. And if your concern is an unlimited ability or an unregulated or a lack of oversight on what that fee amount would be, there are two reasons in this amendment why you would support this and would urge the adoption of L003.
Senator King.
How do we find actual cost? How do we find actual cost? Well, we would find actual cost by auditing. Auditing the private sector? No, you can't audit the private sector. The audit committee cannot audit the private sector. So how do we find actual cost?
Members, please note that the Senate rules do limit you to the use of one microphone per time of speaking. Senator Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment, although well-intentioned, just kind of reminds me of when I was just young, kid and selling auto parts at an auto parts dealership. And folks would ask me if they bought an alternator or whatever, is there a warranty on this alternator? I said, yeah, there's a real good one, very good one. We got the best warranty going. And they said, well, what's the warranty? I said, it's warranted for the life of the alternator. And they'd say, wow, that's good. Well, they'd come back a week later or something, and alternator wasn't working so good, and I said, well, that was the life of the alternator, sorry. Of course, that was just joking, and we did replace it. But the idea is the same thing. The fees are what they are as far as the costs, and going into it, we don't know what the costs are going to be. So I would oppose this amendment.
Is there any further discussion on L003? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of L003. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. L003 is passed. To the bill, Senator Lombard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good news, I've found the solution. Actually, I've been passing on the words of what we've been doing here on Facebook. I find it's very useful to interact with my constituents, and one of my constituents came back with the solution is already in Larimer County. In Larimer County, I'm told by one person, so I haven't been able to confirm this, but at the Larimer County run landfill, they've got a shelf where you put your used paint. And then the next person who comes in looks at it. If they want the paint, they take it home and they use it. Boom. Why in the world are we charging tens of millions of dollars to the people of Colorado when this is a very simple issue that can be solved? And as a matter of fact, in committee, I understand there was one gentleman who came in and said that he makes a business out of recycling used paint, and he makes a profit at it. Why in the world do we need to charge everybody in the state of Colorado what really amounts to an exorbitant tax of millions and millions of dollars?
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back to page 6. Let's go with line 8. The producer, okay, I'll go back just to refresh, starting on line 6. No producer shall sell, offer for sale, or distribute architectural paint in Colorado unless the producer is implementing or participating in a paint stewardship program. What is the definition of participating? Does that mean paying extra fees or for a license? Does he have to have some certificate of participation, which costs him money? Does he or she have, is this participating in, meaning that they agree to collect this fee for paint use? What does this mean? Can we get some definition? Because we do have 3 pages of definitions preceding actually the content of the bill. So can somebody please give me that definition?
Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the Senate's information, best estimate by Google. How many gallons of paint are sold in Colorado a year? 10.2 million gallons of paint are sold a year in Colorado. And we talked about Mesa County collects 9,000 gallons off the bottom of the can, and we talked about the amount. 10.2 million gallons of paint times 75 cents, although we've now done it so that it is the cost of the program, which we don't know how we're going to find that out because it's in the private sector. You put a pencil to this, and it is a huge use tax. It is a tax for painting the side of your house. Times 10.2 million. This is huge. We would never do this with gas. We would never do this with milk. Add a 75-cent use to that tomorrow? But we'll do it with a gallon of paint because we want to, what? Be environmentally friendly. Okay, I'm with you. We need to do that. We're doing that in Mesa County, and it's not costing Mesa County taxpayers anything. It's in the tipping fee, which they haven't changed in over 5 years. 9,000 gallons a year. Boy, I'll tell you what, if you're not hearing from your constituents on this, people at the table, well, there are no people at the table, are asleep at the wheel when it comes to reporting this. This is a huge use tax.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 29? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 29. Division has been called. Would all of those in the chamber not entitled to vote please be seated? Cindy, we can't. Okay. All those in favor, please stand. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand. Senate Bill 29 is adopted. Majority Leader Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we rise and report.
Motion before the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report. And I will hand this gavel intact back to the president.
Way to wait on the division?
It worked out, didn't it?
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
February 27, 2014, Madam President, your committee of the whole brings you report is under consideration the following attached bills being second reading thereof, makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 29 is amended and passed on second reading in order to gross placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1022 passed on second reading and in order revised placed on the counter for third reading and final passage.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the adoption of the report.
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you please read Committee of the Whole Amendment 2 by Senator Bummer?
Committee of the Whole Amendment 2 to Senate Bill 29. Senator Bummer.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, this is an amendment that amends the floor amendment number 3 that Senator Newell just passed during the second reading, where she said that it would be based on the actual cost. So I haven't changed that. The actual cost is still in there. All I'm saying is that it can't exceed 75 cents per gallon. So what we did by passing the amendment during the second reading discussion is we said we want it to be actual cost. And we can definitely see the advantages and perhaps disadvantages of that approach. But the concern is that we've not put a ceiling on this. We've not said that I think that if we pass this amendment, it'll be a good thing because we will not allow a program that in many ways is going to be run by a few companies that are participating in it. They could say that the actual cost is $2 per gallon or more. I didn't come up with this 75-cent number. That number was given to us by the proponents. They said that that is what the fee has been in other states. So all I'm saying is if we're going to go with this actual cost, which was adopted in the second reading debate on this bill, that fee be no higher than 75 cents, and that's what this amendment will do. Just so you be clear to understand, this amendment's wording was not offered on second reading. This amendment is changing the amendment we just drafted to say no higher than 75 cents. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion? Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, I ask for a no vote on this because now with the amendment that we just adopted, it could be potentially two contradictory messages in the same bill. So I ask for a no vote for the same purposes that we said before, that if it turns out to be 74 cents, 76 cents, then that would not work. So thank you. I ask for no vote.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Madam President. This amendment to the Committee of the Whole does not create any conflict whatsoever. It simply creates a ceiling to the cost. And that ceiling is 75 cents a gallon for every new, fresh gallon of paint sold in the state of Colorado. And let me remind you that that's to process whatever surplus paint that would be left over, which is a tiny, tiny fraction of that. So it's limiting the cost to what still amounts to an extraordinary amount. What, $30, $40, $50, $100 per gallon of paint processed, because we're taking it out of all of the paint produced and then applying it to only the surplus paint that ends up being processed through this system. This is an amendment I will support, even though I believe it's still wildly excessive in the cost. But to reject this amendment would be to say, well, 75 cents is not enough.
Question before the body is the adoption of the Balmer Committee of the Whole amendment. Are there any no votes? Senator Toctrop, Mr. Majority Leader. Senator Aguilar, Senator Nicholson, Senator Newell, Senator Todd, Senator Kafalis, Madam President Pro Tem, Senator John, Senators Stedman, Hodge, Zenzinger, Schwartz, Kerr, Jones, Ulibarri, poor Max, Johnston. Please have the President. With 18 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Committee of the Whole Amendment 2 is lost. Senator Kerr renews his motion for the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Is there any discussion on the Committee of the Whole report? Question for the body is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader. Senators King, Rivera, Lundberg, Scheffel, Marble, Roberts, Hill, Balmer, Herpin, Brophy, Lambert, Crowder, Renfro, Grantham, with 19 ayes, 15 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 29 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1022 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Message from the House.
February 27, 2014, Madam President, the House has passed on third reading and transmitted the advisory statutes. House Bill 1054 is amended and 1108 as amended.
Message from the reviser.
February 27, 2014, we herewith transmit without comment as amended House Bills 1054 and 1108.
Signing of bills.
February 26, 2014, the President has signed House Bills 1024, 1059, and 1111.
Announcements. Senator Scheffel.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, I know many of you are aware, and there's been email traffic on the funeral services scheduled for former 18th Judicial District Jim Peters, who passed away. And just wanted to remind anybody who's interested in attending that the services are scheduled to be at St. Thomas More Catholic Church tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Jim represented Douglas, Arapahoe, Lincoln, and Elbert counties. And I appreciate the majority making accommodations so that those of us who would like to attend can do so. Thank you.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Madam President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, I just want to take a couple of minutes to acknowledge this is Peace Corps Week, and we have a House Joint Resolution to celebrate Peace Corps Week and the 53rd anniversary of the Peace Corps, which was established in 1961. I think it is appropriate to honor current Peace Corps volunteers and returned Peace Corps volunteers of Colorado, of which some are still in the chambers. But I think many of you know that the Peace Corps has been, frankly, an enduring symbol of our nation's commitment to encourage progress, create opportunity, and expand development at the grassroots level in the developing world. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in El Salvador in Central America from 1979 to 1980. As I have indicated before, it was a transformative experience for me, and so I'm very pleased to be able to acknowledge Peace Corps as an institution and all the good work that's been done. Currently, there are over 200,000 Americans that have served as Peace Corps volunteers in 139 host countries since 1961, when President John F. Kennedy established the Peace Corps. Over the last 53 years, approximately 6,900 men and women from the state of Colorado have participated in the Peace Corps. There are currently 247 Coloradans serving in the Peace Corps in 65 host countries. And also, as an alum of Colorado State University, I want to do a shout out for not only CSU,
but CU Boulder and University of Denver, which rank among the leading United States colleges and universities for the number of currently serving Peace Corps volunteers. And actually, CSU, I'll get in trouble for this, but I believe it's CU is ranked 4th on the list of Peace Corps top colleges for the total number of volunteers since 1961. So thank you, colleagues, for listening. We had folks here before, and just really quickly, the countries that they represented were Kenya, Costa Rica, Armenia, Jamaica, Cameroon, and Kenya. Again, I mean, they've come from the Ukraine, Vanuatu, look that up on the map to see where that is, Poland, Nicaragua, and Tanzania. So thank you very much, members, for giving us a few moments to honor these folks and Peace Corps as an institution. Thank you.
Senator Toktrap, for a related moment of personal privilege.
Yes, and I want to thank Senator Kafalis for bringing this resolution forward. My son served in the Peace Corps, and we had to we're very fortunate that we got to go over and visit him. He was in Mali, and we spent 3 weeks, and it was one of the most interesting, I don't want to call it a vacation, but one of the most interesting experiences in our life to see a true third world country and to see what the members of the Peace Corps are doing. They are the best diplomats that we could ever send to another country, because they are the young men and women, for the most part. We do have older seniors that go in the Peace Corps, and really is the snapshot of what America is. And you know, I admire anybody that goes to the Peace Corps, because you just can't you know, volunteer. You have to pass, and you have to meet a lot of criteria. The reason our son got to go was not because he was a college graduate, more or less, when we lived in the country on the farm, that he knew a lot about farming issues and agricultural issues, and that sent him. And he spoke French, so he went to a French country, Mali, which was one of the 10 poorest countries in the world. And unfortunately, it's where Timbuktu is. Unfortunately, we could not go to Timbuktu when we were there, because they had some, the rebels were starting to stir things up, and I think you know that they had a big issue a couple years ago in Mali. But what they always say when you talk to the Peace Corps volunteers, it's the hardest job you'll ever love. And again, thank you, Senator Kafalis, and thank you, Peace Corps volunteers, for the work that you did and for the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Crowder.
Ms. Guzman. Moment of personal privilege, Madam President.
Granted.
It's been an interesting day. I want to ask my assistant, Senator Guzman, to come up, Mr. Kerr. Colleagues, we are lucky to be celebrating Live Well Colorado at the Capitol today and have representatives of 24 Live Well communities from across the state with us. Some of them have been here in the chamber with us all morning. As you know, the mission of Live Well Colorado is to reduce childhood obesity and promote healthy eating and active living in places that we live, learn, work, and play. Making the healthy choice easy choice, and Live Well is here to help. On your desk is a stretch band, and you will observe my colleagues demonstrating how that works. And I will ask you to go ahead and read your literature on it, and you know, I will demonstrate exactly how it works. Well, they do such a much better job. Thank you, colleagues. You're quite the assistants. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Strangulation is against the rules. Senator Hodge.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to remind my good colleagues on the Appropriations Committee, because you're so dedicated, I know you need to be reminded not to show up at 7:30 tomorrow morning, because we are not meeting.
Other announcements? Senator Herpin.
Thank you, Madam President. If you've ever investigated having solar on your home and would like to take advantage of that, but because you live in a condominium apartment or can't have that configuration, I would invite you to attend a lunch tomorrow at noon in House Conference Room 0107, where the founder of SunShare is going to talk about community solar gardens. Colorado Springs and Colorado Springs Utilities was the first utility in the nation to establish the idea of a community solar garden where these solar gardens are built someplace on a piece of vacant land, and then you can lease the panels, buy a panel, and get credit on your electric bill. So if you're interested in learning more about community solar gardens and some exciting things that are coming forward that will not require a subsidy by anybody, please come and attend the lunch tomorrow at noon. Thank you. You should have gotten an email on Monday from Melanie Kelly to RSVP if you're going to attend, so make sure they have enough lunch. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Senator Toktar and Renfro.
Thank you, Madam President. We are here to inform you that the Beer Caucus is getting back together, and there will be a happy hour and a brewery tour involved in this caucus event. You want to continue?
Yes, and it's at Cheeky Monk Beer Cafe, which is on Colfax and Pearl. Some of you may know where it is. And also what they're doing right now, they're building a craft brewery right next to the Cheeky Monk, so they will offer tours. And those of you that have never had a chance to tour a craft brewery, it's very, very interesting. And they will have spirits, beer, and some they won't have any other liquid refreshments. They'll have food, and they will have beer, I can guarantee that. And please come, because the Beer Caucus has got their meeting tonight, and we need the members to show up.
Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam President. Today is Craft Brewers Day at the Capitol, if you didn't know. So that is what we're celebrating today. And it is tonight, 5:30 to 7:30 at the Cheeky Monk, which is just down Colfax, a couple blocks east of here. So we'll be there tonight, and please join us.
Senator Schwartz.
Thank you, Madam President. And you know, we wouldn't have beer without hops. So tonight and today we are celebrating the Governor's Agricultural Forum and inviting members, not only just the Agriculture Committee, to the Agriculture Hall of Fame this evening at the Renaissance Hotel, honoring our agriculture leaders in the state of Colorado. And again, some of those are hop producers, so they're supporting an important industry as well. As we know, agriculture is the second largest industry in the state of Colorado, contributes over $40 billion to our economy. So with that, I would invite anyone who's available to join us this evening at the Renaissance. I do have that information if you are interested.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. The committees are meeting as scheduled. I was told that the Health and Human Services Committee is going to proceed out of order, so Senate Bill 144 will be first, followed by Senate Bill 50, followed by Senate Bill 16. So for those of you that are going to be part of that, please note that. Let me just do a follow-up to Senator Sheffel's announcement that the funeral service or the service for D.A. Peters will be tomorrow. In light of that, we are not going to hear any of the bills on second reading tomorrow. So we will have an abbreviated session to allow the members that want to attend that service to be out of here by roughly 10:15. And we will go ahead with the rest of that's on the calendar tomorrow, but we will not do any second readings. So plan on that. We'll lay those over until Monday. Again, I hope everybody gets that. If there are any questions, feel free to see me after we adjourn.
Senator Schwartz, did you have another announcement?
We have canceled agriculture in case anyone was planning to come testify. It's actually will not be held. There's no bills on
Mr. Majority Leader.
And I am told that the Agriculture Committee will not be meeting. There are no bills. So with that, Madam President, I would move the Senate adjourn till 9 a.m. Friday, February 28th.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The Senate will adjourn until 9 a.m. tomorrow, Friday, February 28th.
See you in a couple minutes.